realized, man, there was so much missing my life. Even my walk, my spiritual perspective was so one dimensional,
Mm,
so unchallenged that I realized I wasn't growing. I could
mm.
not grow.
Wow.
And I think desiring, chasing after, and being in, and my default now is I'm always in a place where I can be challenged. That's my default.
What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Let's just get to it. The whole secular sacred divide. There is no distinction in the scriptures. Some of us have trust issues with God, and some of us, yeah, it's like, does God really got us? You can't engage the culture with the gospel that first has not engaged you. Like, you know how people are like, oh, that's just who I am. Nah.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
Shaping the code. I did a few shows with Preston, and at one point somebody had asked about marriage, and he talked about the importance of community, and he brought you up, and he shared how seeing the way you love your wife and the way you love your kids, drew you to him, and it created a new standard. He's like, I don't want to be around men who don't talk about their wives or who don't love their wives. I need to get around a community of men who are committed to integrity, committed to their spouses, who enjoy their spouses. And so I kind of wanted to ask you, what does it look like to get around a community of men? Because I really do believe that in order to show up for our wives, show up for our children, show up for our communities, we first have to show up for ourselves. And we can't show up for ourselves without being in a community and having accountability. So what does it look like to be the kind of person that says, you know what, it's uncomfortable, it can be awkward at times, difficult at times, but I choose to surround myself with other men who share my values, share the vision that I have for my home, so that I can be held accountable in what God has for me.
Yeah, man. That's a loaded question, man. The little I can say is because actually I came up a lot of my walk not even knowing what discipleship meant. I never heard the word discipleship until, hanging around people like Preston and, seeing what that looked like. And I saw myself growing comfortable not having men that I would walk alongside that could pour into me or that I would be able to pour into. And I realized, man, there was so much missing my life. Even my walk, my spiritual perspective was so one dimensional,
Mm,
so unchallenged that I realized I wasn't growing. I could
mm,
not grow.
wow.
And I think desiring, chasing after, and being in, and my default now is I'm always in a place where I can be challenged. That's my default.
Wow.
That is not a spiritual mountain for me. My default is always putting myself in a position where I can grow, where I am open, where I can be called out, because I know that that is the route
Mm,
towards my heart posture staying right. And
yeah.
so even I started Band of Brothers in 2020. That has been like real key for myself and people around me to
Mm,
make sure that it's part of our culture. We know that as long as I believe I'm walking and chasing after God, that does not happen outside of community. In a sense,
mm,
like if I'm calling God Father and He's calling me Son, then I can't deny my brothers. I
mm,
can't deny his sons.
mm.
And
Wow.
I'll just say this is the last thing I'll say, man. It was very interesting looking at Luke 15, the story of the prodigal son. When
Yes.
you look at the older brother, when his younger brother returned, he didn't go after, he didn't follow his father in to the front to go embrace his little brother. And in fact, he began to question the servants, like, what's going on in the house? Meaning, he didn't even know the heart of the father or the plans of the father,
Mm,
his desire for the father to even to make these plans or to plan this party. So he was completely outside of the heart of the father and the plans of the father. So that's one thing. Two,
wow.
the servant said, your brother has returned home. And he was like, man, he said, my father, he said something like that, my father is celebrating his son and does not celebrate me.
Mm,
He called his brother his son. And even at the
mm,
end, the father said, the brother reiterated that to his father, and the father reiterated, your brother
Yes.
was lost and now found.
Yes.
So God's purpose and intention is to remind us of that community because it reflects that we have his heart, right?
Mm.
And so when we find ourselves in a position where all the kingdom men that we know are just God's other sons, then we recognize that our hearts are out of line with the Father. Because if we're in line with him, then our perspective begins to shift, and our leaning in and our embrace, we just begin to go after our
Mm.
brothers because they're
Yeah.
no longer just his other sons.
Wow.
These are the men that I've been called to. And so I
My
think it's
goodness.
an assessment that we can check, like when we're locked in isolation, whether it be because of sin or because of elevation or promotion.
Yeah.
If our hearts are not after the sons of God, then we are not in line with the heart of the Father.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ezekiel,
So yeah.
I've heard Luke 15 a million times. I've preached from it. I've never heard it explained that way. That was profound, bro.
Yeah,
That
bro.
was good.
Yeah,
That
man.
was
I,
good.
I just discovered it this year, man. And I've preached it a few times, so praise God, man.